my first ever video talking about my childhood trauma. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I made a TikTok a few days ago and it actually got a lot of attention from a lot of people who were saying that they were able to relate to it and how they never would have guessed that something like this would happen in middle class families and how sorry they were that this happened to me. And it's just made me realize that this happens a lot more than we think it does. And so I want to use my platforms now to bring awareness to middle class families and child abuse that happens within them and how it is commonly overlooked by, people of authority, people that you should trusted adults, all of that, just because you do come from a middle class family. So if you're watching this on my Instagram, make sure you're following me so that way you can still see this story because it is going to be a lot. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, make sure you like and subscribe again so you can make sure that you can follow this story because it is a lot. So we're just going to kind of jump right into it. In this video, I'm just going to talk about my bio parents' divorce, so my mom and my dad. A lot of you have been asking where she was. So this is going to kind of cover some of that. I'll also get more into where she was in my second video also. It's just, there's so much that I don't want to make this be like a 25-minute video. So we're just going to kind of go from there. First, we're going to start off with my bio parents getting a divorce. So my mom sat us down in the living room. I think this was like 2002, 2003. I was like 7 or 8. And then my youngest bio sister, she was 5 or 6 at the time because I believe she was in kindergarten and like going into first grade, or she was in first grade. I don't really remember. But so my mom sat us down in the living room and she just told us like, hey, your dad's going to be moving out. He's not going to be living with us anymore. We are going to live in different houses, but we still love you. This has nothing to do with you guys. The typical divorce talk that anybody who has divorced parents, you kind of get it. So she kind of just explained that to us and we were still really young. So we were just kind of like, okay, yeah, cool, whatever. Still kind of confused. Obviously, I think we were upset. I don't really remember because I was so young. But my mom stayed in the house with us throughout the duration of the divorce. So while we lived with her during this whole thing that was going on, she had the house that I grew up in. So we would go and visit my bio dad when the divorce started because they had split custody. So we would go visit him one day out of the week and then every other weekend. And when we would go see him, we would go stay at my grandma's house because he didn't really have a place to live. So I'm assuming he was living in his mechanic shop and then he would like come to my grandma's house to like shower and eat or whatever. I don't know. So we would go over there, and at the time, my cousin's parents, so bio dad's brother, was also divorcing his wife. So his kids were also living at my grandma's house. So there were 6 of us total living at my grandma's house. And we would stay there. And I mean, as a kid, we had a blast. Like, we get to see our cousins all the time. We had horses because we grew up on a farm. And so that's just kind of like where we were, we were really content with that. During the divorce, bio dad was like the picture perfect dad. He was taking us to the lake all the time. Like on his weekends, we were going to the lake. We were going to Yellowstone. We were going shopping. He bought us all our own pony. Like, it was huge. Like Easter, he got us like those giant Easter bunnies, and he got us like these huge Easter baskets with chocolate. So as a kid, like, this is great. Like, we're living the high life. Like, we get to go to my grandma's house, we get to play with horses, and we get to see our cousins, and we get to go to the lake, and we're going on trips, and we're doing all this fun stuff. And it's like, looking back now as an adult, I'm like, that was conditioning. Like, he was conditioning us to have all these fun things. And it's because he knew my mom couldn't provide this same life for us because she'd gone from being a stay-at-home mom when they were married to suddenly having to figure out how to support herself as well as like 3 kids. And he made like a lot of money working at his mechanic shop. He made a lot of money. So he took care of everything. And so she had to go and figure out how she was going to take care of us and like take care of the house. Obviously, while she's living there, she's got to pay the mortgage. She has to take care of 3 kids. Like, it was a really big change for her and it was really hard. I mean, she was able for a while to work from home. So that way she would be there when we got home from school and things like that. But he knew that she wasn't going to be able to provide these like physical items for us. And as a kid, kids like things. And, looking back as an adult, like I said, you can tell it's conditioning. Like, you can tell that what he was doing was trying to make us want to be like with him more often because look at all this cool stuff that I'm giving you. Look at all this cool stuff that we're doing. Now, obviously, while all of this like number one dad stuff is going on, the divorce is also still going on. And while we were kids, he like started with the brainwashing. Like, looking back now, it's like there was a lot of brainwashing that was happening. So while my parents were in court and they were fighting for custody, this divorce took 3 years because the custody battle was so insane and it was so intense. And I want to make it very well known from the beginning is that my bio dad did not want to win custody because he loved us. He wanted to win custody because he wanted to beat my mom. He wanted to take the one thing from her that would destroy her, because all my mom ever wanted in life was to be a mom. And he decided that he was going to take that from her because he needed to win, because, you know, typical narcissist, like, his ego was hurt because he was getting divorced, and so he's going to take us from her. And it wasn't like he wanted to be our dad. That's not what it was. He would tell us all the time, and I'll get more into this later down the line when I talk about the actual abuse that happened, but he would tell us all the time about how we ruined his life and how he didn't want to be a dad, and how my mom tricked him into it and forced him into being a dad because she wanted to be a mom, and so he needed to be a dad, and he was going to have this great career, and we destroyed it. So don't get that idea in your head that while number one dad stuff is going on, that he wanted us, because that was not the case. Anyways, back to the point. So he started brainwashing us, where he would say things about my mom. Like, my mom never told us stuff about the divorce. She would never bring it up in front of us because she's, you know, a great person and doesn't want us like think ill of our biological dad. Just because they don't love each other anymore doesn't mean that she doesn't want us to love him. He did not take it that way. He was like, no, your mom is evil. She does drugs. She's this horrible person, which is untrue. All of this is not true. To bio dad, just to give you like a perspective, to bio dad, weed is meth. Like, there's no in between. Like, if you smoke weed, you do meth. And she wasn't even doing that. But to him, that's just kind of how he thinks. And he thinks that alcohol's of the devil and all this stuff, which is really ironic. You'll find that out later on. But anyway, so the brainwashing started, where I remember very vividly as a kid. I think I was like 9, maybe 10. And we were at my grandma's house, and we were sitting at the kitchen table, and we'd come back in from riding the horses. My cousins were out with their biological mom, so they weren't there. And we were all sitting at the kitchen table having lunch, and he came over to have lunch with us, and we're like, okay, cool. And then we were sitting there, and he starts telling us this story where he said that we told him that our bio mom tried to drown us in the tub. Specifically, that I told him that I watched her try to drown my twin sister in the tub. Now, at first, we were kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, that, we never said that. That didn't happen. But then I remember sitting there, and timeline wise, just to kind of give you a timeline, we sat down, we had lunch. During lunch, this conversation went on. We sat there and talked about this over and over and over, just the same thing over and over and over and over, all the way up until my grandma started making dinner, and we had to go do chores like feed the horses and feed the cats and whatnot. And that's a long time. That's a really long time for a kid to sit there and have them make us tell this story. And like, I remember him writing it down, and he would like have me say it back to him, to the extent of like, I've discussed this in therapy. Don't worry, I am in therapy. We're working on it. But I've discussed this in therapy to the point that like, I can remember this happening. I can remember seeing my mom drowning my twin sister in the bathtub, even though I know that this didn't happen, because I can also remember him starting that story. I can remember him sitting there and saying that to me and being like, what are you talking about? I never said that. And then to the point of like, now I can see this happen. Like, I can see the bathroom that was in that house. I can, even to this day, I can picture it so clearly as if it really happened, but it didn't. There's no way. It's impossible. Like, my mom would never do that. And I know that for a fact. And it's because he started brainwashing us. He started brainwashing us with so many other things. There was another time where my cousins had just gotten back from visiting with their biological mom. And so they were at my grandma's house. And, you know, as a kid, you want to hang out with your cousins and you want to stay and you want to have fun. And my grandma said that if we wanted to stay the night, and my mom said that it was okay, that she would take us to school the next morning because we had clothes and stuff there. So she would take us to school, and that way we could stay and hang out with our cousins. Well, I called my mom. And I was like, hey, we want to stay and hang out with our cousins. Like, they just got back, whatever. And she told me, no, you need to come home. Like, you can go back next weekend, but you need to come home tonight. And that's all she said. It was like, you need to tell your dad that he needs to bring you home. So I walk out and I tell my bio dad, and I'm like, hey, mom said, like, I'm crying, you know, I'm upset. Mom said we can't stay over. We need to go home because we have school tomorrow, and she wants us to come home. And she said she's going to beat you if you don't come home. And I just kind of remember being like taken aback, like, what? And then he looked over to my grandma and he's like, she said she's going to beat them if she doesn't take them home. I can't take them back to that. We need to call the police. So I remember then sitting in my aunt's car with my 2 siblings and a couple of my cousins while a couple police officers showed up, and he sat outside and talked to them for about 30 to 45 minutes, saying that we said that she was going to beat us if we didn't come home. And so he was, telling the police officer this fabricated story, and we're scared, we're young, there's cops at our house, we're like, what are you talking about? And so we're just like, yeah, okay. And so they then escorted us from my grandparents' house over to my house with my mom, and the cop went in, and I remember him sitting on the couch with her, telling her, if you lay a finger on these kids, I will arrest you. Now, I just want to paint a picture here. My mom has never, to my knowledge, ever hit me. So I think that's why I was so thrown off by him saying that and calling the police and making it this big deal. And I remember we were going to bed and my mom was crying, and we'd got down to turn the TV on because she always let us play a VHS tape before we went to bed, and got down to turn the TV on, and she came in and she turned it off, and she's like, no, it's too late, you're just gonna go to bed. And she was really upset. And I think that she knew that we didn't say this. I think she knew that he had said this and he had fabricated this to the extent of calling the police to make this look really bad in court. So I think that that's what happened. And so she wasn't upset with us, she was upset with him. After that night, I think this is when we got our child advocate. So for those of you who don't know, a child advocate is an adult, a court-appointed adult who comes in and obviously their job is to advocate for the child or children during divorces and custody battles, things like that. So my mom had this woman who would come and talk to us, and come to find out now as an adult, there was actually an incident that happened where my mom received a call from our child advocate who said that if my mom could not afford to pay her, that she was going to have to write her reports in favor of the other parent. I believe that that's actually what happened, that since my mom couldn't pay her, and bio dad could because he has money, and since he could pay her, that she chose to falsify reports. And I feel like that has a lot to do with why we grew up the way that we did. She was later investigated. My twin sister is actually in school right now to become a social worker, and so she did a report on her, and come to find out in 2010, 2011, I think it was, she was actually investigated for doing this exact thing where she was favoring one parent due to their financial status. So, the parent who could pay her was the one she was writing the reports for, regardless of the well-being of the child. I mean, that's her job. Her job is to advocate for the children, but she's too busy looking at the paycheck of, well, this person can keep paying me, so we're just going to say that, the kid's better off with them. That's, that just makes me sick. Now, to kind of tie up this whole video here, so in 2005, my bio dad, obviously, he won custody of us. He also won the house. And when we were, it asks us a lot, but when we were kids, we said that we wanted to live with my biological dad. And I think looking back now as an adult and going through therapy and things like that, when we've talked about this, looking back, I think as a child, we believed that we were going to be living with my grandma. Because if you think about it, whenever we were seeing him at grandma's house. Grandma's house is where the horses were. My grandma was there and we loved her a lot. And my cousins were all there. And so we had all these people to hang out with and play with all the time. And so I really, truly believe that when they asked us who we wanted to live with, and we said we want, by they, I mean our child advocate, when she asked us who we wanted to live with and we said that we wanted to live with my dad, I genuinely believe that we thought that we were going to live with my grandma. Now that is going to be it for today's video. I'm going to be doing another one next week where I'll go into more detail about where my mom went, and then also about how he met Step Monster and her kids moving in and all of that. So I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much. It's just so insane to me that so many people want to hear this story and so many people want to know what happened to me. And it's just, as an adult, it makes me feel less crazy, because growing up in a situation like that, you're told all the time that you're being dramatic and that there's nothing wrong with it. And so being an adult now and talking about this and having so many of you being like, what? It really helps a lot. So I really appreciate all of you guys for wanting to watch this and wanting to hear my story. So make sure that you've liked and subscribed, and that you're following me on Instagram if you're watching some of my Instagram stories, so that way you can kind of stay up with everything. I want to make sure that you don't miss it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in comments down below, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.